Evening, everyone. Thanks to all of you for attending. As we gather, we recognize that we're on Treaty 3 lands, which are steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations and Métis people today. We continue to be thankful for the partnerships with our Indigenous people. This meeting will be called to order. We've got to make a couple of changes tonight. Sorry, I just got my agenda. I just need to ask if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof by any member of the committee.
Madam Chair, if I can just interject, Member Robert Bowman, who is not present at today's meeting, had declared a conflict of interest on file D13-2406, which will be heard under old business.
Thank you. So is there any other member who wishes to declare?
Choosing to exercise my discretionary right under section 11.2B of the planning advisory terms of reference. In the interest of making an informed decision, I was not in attendance at the August 21st, 2024 meeting of PAC, and therefore would plan to make a decision on application D13-2406.
Thank you.
I would like Andrea Campbell to make the same declaration. Would you like me to repeat the declaration, or can I just say as well as
Under 11.2
yes?
C of the terms of reference. Thank you.
All right. So the next thing we have to do is we actually have to go into a closed meeting. I just want to thank you all for your patience. We're hoping to make this about a 15-minute wait. We will be adjourning to a different room. So pursuant to section 239 Municipal Act, as in 2001 is amended, I need a resolution, please, Weaver, to move into that. Okay, Renee, and a seconder, please, Linda. So we're going into closed session at 6:02 to discuss items pertaining to the following. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Thanks, everybody, for your patience.
Okay, thank you everyone again for your patience. Just acknowledging that the Planning Advisory Committee reconvenes to the open meeting with no reports from its closed session, and Chair Tara Rickaby will now read some opening remarks.
Okay, thanks, and thank you again, everybody. So this is a hearing of the Kenora Planning Advisory Committee, committed the adjustment for the city of Kenora. The committee members have been appointed by council to consider applications for minor variances, consents, plans of subdivision, and condominium descriptions within the jurisdiction of the Planning Act. The applicants or agents will be given an opportunity to speak on behalf of their submissions and to respond to questions which arise from discussion of these applications. Interested members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak in favor of or opposition to the applications being dealt with at these hearings. So prior to calling the meeting to order, anybody who's on Zoom, if you could ensure that your microphone is on mute. Should you be joining the meeting with video, please be mindful of what's visible behind you. Be respectful of others throughout the meeting. And that goes for everybody, of course. If at any time you wish to leave the meeting, you're free to do so simply by leaving or by doing end call if you're on Zoom. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, and by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. If you are on Zoom, please tap leave meeting to opt out and exit the session. When it's time for public comments, for those of you who have registered to speak, I will address you by name that you registered with when it's your turn to speak. If you did not pre-register and wish to speak, please use the raise hand or just simply raise your hand. And I will address you by the name that you give me or is on their screen. Once your name has been called, if you're on Zoom, please unmute your microphone. And if you are speaking to us here tonight, if you wouldn't mind just coming up to this table here, that would be great. Thank you. Decisions will be mailed or emailed to the applicant, agent, and all the other interested parties will provide their mailing address and or email address to the secretary treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. Also, a notice of adjourned applications or possible local planning appeal tribunal hearing will also be provided to those who made a written request form via email to the secretary treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. Again, I'd like to thank you all for your patience. Some of you may be here tonight with regard to application for minor variance file number D13-2406, which falls under old business within the agenda. Please note that the public meeting for this file has ended and no public comments will be heard at tonight's meeting. We will be, of course, discussing what we received and considering what we received for the amended application. But the committee will resume with questions and discussion with the applicant. Are there any additions to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to identify that after the publishing of the agenda on September 13th, we did receive additional correspondence, and so I will read those into record for the benefit of the public and the minutes once we get to agenda item number 7.
Okay. So approval minutes for the regular meeting of Planning Advisory Committee held on August 21st of 2024. May I have a mover, please? It's Linda. And a seconder, please. Renee, all in favor? Okay. So item 7, correspondence relating to the applications before the committee.
Yes, as mentioned, we did receive additional correspondence. So for the benefit of those who did submit correspondence and the minutes, and to have members acknowledge that they have received and read the additional correspondence received, I will just read those in now. Number 1, addendum to the planning rationale presented by Susan Russell of McGowan Russell Group, Inc. Conceptual variance plan, a full drawing package by Susan Russell of McGowan Russell Group, Inc. Correspondence received from JCP Planning, Jeff Port, Planner, MCIP RPP. Correspondence from a member of the public, Brian Campbell and Stephanie Dezingo. Correspondence from a member of the public, Pamela Frazier. Correspondence from a member of the public, Deanna Kelly. Did I pronounce that right? My apologies. Correspondence from Jennifer Hudson, lawyer, Thompson, Dorfman, Sweatman, LLP, and correspondence from a member of the public, Shannon Campbell. Just if I could have members raise their hands acknowledging they have received all of those and read them. Thank you.
So, yeah, as usual, we'll just leave those in for the actual file. Any other correspondence? No. Any adjournment requests? Seeing none. So our first application is an application for minor variance D 13-2407. Is there anybody here who wants to represent that application? Yeah. Mr. Foster, okay. So, there. Okay.
Mr. Klosnick, did you want to address the committee?
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Yes, I'm happy to answer any questions about the file, but essentially we're requesting a parking variance for a revision to the project. So the project is slated to change to from condominiums to rentals, and in that change requires a parking variance.
So, and Tara Vader is the planner who will be presenting this, is that right, Tara?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
This presentation is regarding minor variance application file D 13-2407. This is pertaining to the lands located at 421 9th Avenue North. My presentation will just be a summary of the report that was provided to the committee members. So the purpose of this application is to permit a reduced number of parking stalls and to permit multiple stacked dwellings on one lot. The application is specifically seeking relief from section 3.23 of the Kenora zoning bylaw to permit a relief of 22 parking stalls. They're proposing to have 108 total parking stalls rather than the required 130 under the Kenora bylaw. The second variance they're requesting is a variance from section 3.13.1. Which restricts more than one single detached, duplex, triplex, stacked apartment, multiple attached or converted dwelling from being erected on any lot. This application is proposing to permit multiple stacked dwellings on a single lot. This is a location map of where the subject lands are located. And this is the site plan provided by the applicant for this minor variance application. I will note this application or these subject lands have received approval for a plan of condominium file D07-2301, and they do have an approved minor variance file D13-24 or 2314, which increased the number of duplex and triplex dwellings that may be located on a single lot from 1 to 24, decreased the minimum required rear yard from 8 meters to 5 meters, and increase the maximum building height from 10 meters to 10.5 meters. Upon circulation of this application, we did receive comments from city staff. There were concerns about the access for the fire department. These concerns specifically were regarding the existing primary access, otherwise known as Red Pine Way, and the proposed secondary access. The concerns are really surrounding the ability for fire department equipment to access the property adequately. There were concerns that a reduced parking may compound the problem. It was circulated to relevant agencies. We did receive comments from the Ministry of Natural Resources. They had no concerns with this application. And at the time of the report being submitted, there were no comments received from the public. The planning review for this file included a review of the provincial policy statement,
This application is generally consistent and supported by several policies of the provincial policy statement issued 2020. The second thing it was reviewed against is the 4 tests of a minor variance. First, does this variance maintain the intent of the official plan? As this application is proposed to increase the number of residential dwelling units and is an efficient use of land, it does maintain the intent of the official plan. Does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The proposed reduction in parking results in 1.3 parking stalls per unit and maintains the existing approved site plan for the development with 108 parking stalls. This application is also proposing a range of housing forms, increasing the number of residential dwelling units and is on municipal services. Thus, this application maintains the intent of the City of Kenora zoning bylaw. Is the application desirable for the appropriate development of the land? The land is currently vacant / ongoing a residential development. The proposed variance is desirable for an increase of dwelling units on the subject lands and for the pivot to a rental model for this development. Is the variance minor? The proposed variance is not expected to have significant impact on the surrounding area, nor is it expected to impact the ability of adjacent neighbors to utilize their properties for permitted uses. Because of this, the variance is considered minor in nature and in impact. Planning Department is recommending 2 conditions. First, that an easement is registered for right-of-way access in favor of the development over KPDSP property as a secondary emergency access. Second, that the site plan control agreement for 421 9th Avenue North, generally described as that those pins on the screen in the City of Kenora be amended to the satisfaction of the City of Kenora. And overall, the recommendation is that the minor variance application D13-2407 to seek relief from the City of Kenora bylaw 101/2015, section 3.131 and section 3.23 be approved to permit multiple stacked dwellings to be erected on the subject lands and to reduce the required parking stalls from 130 to 108, subject to the recommended conditions. Thank you.
Mr. Costanup, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, so thanks everyone. Thank you, Tara, for presenting that. The only thing I can comment on is to give a little bit of information regarding the intent of the revisions of the development. The intent was to move from 68 dwelling units to 83 dwelling units, not changing the site control plan in terms of layout and in terms of building layout. Sorry, the major change is just simply taking a triplex sized unit and making it a 4-plex size unit. Thus, the requirement for the dwelling variance change of this application. So yeah, that's the Coles notes of what I wanted to talk about was just 68 to 83. The parking plan being the same as it was, but just simply taking a little bit, about 15 more dwelling units to the project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anybody present who wishes to speak to this application? By Zoom either, is there anybody? Maybe there's questions or comments.
I have a couple of questions. I had a chance to look at the site today and I'm just wondering about outdoor amenities and space, sidewalks, paths. And I'm wondering about the width of the road going in for traffic with the parking that's going to be needed. Does the city feel comfortable with that?
Tara, is that something you can speak to?
The development does have an approved site plan, which the applicant has referred to, which has been reviewed with city staff. It would be subject to amendments to allow these changes from a triplex to a fourplex. But it was approved, so I would say that staff are generally content with the plan. The concerns from city staff relating to fire access are satisfied by ensuring that secondary access is being registered and is appropriate for a fire department.
I believe there's no bylaw requiring private property to have sidewalks.
So my comment slash question is, this road is a private road, act under the condominium. Right? Yes.
I can add, sure. The site plan control process is very heavily laden to the engineering department. So our engineers have definitely looked at the road standards and considered the turning radius of vehicles, and you know, the parking layout is unchanged from what was originally proposed and approved by the city. So the amendments that Tara has referred to really be more or less amendments in wording, cleaning it up. The terms duplex and triplex are used instead of stacked dwellings and things like that. That will make it consistent with what is now being proposed with the addition to each triplex that's proposed in phases 2 and 3. So yes, in answer to your question, engineering has reviewed that through site plan control. They will also have an opportunity to review it again through that process when the site plan control amendments are made. And if they require any further amendments, we will ask for them at that time.
One more question, the fire access road, would that be done right at the beginning of phase 1, like when it's completed, will that be put in?
That is why we asked that it be added to the condition of this variance. It was a condition of the condominium agreement or condominium plan registration, but now that they don't necessarily require a condominium plan to be registered because it's going to be rental units on a single property, we would like that act security to know that that easement will be registered and that the construction of that road will be addressed in the site plan.
In a time
Because in its time.
Would you mind reading the resolution, please?
Certainly. The application D13-2407 to seek relief from the City of Kenora Bylaw 101, 2015, Section 3.131 and Section 3.23, to permit multiple stacked dwellings to be erected on the subject lands and to reduce the required parking stalls from 130 to 108 is approved and subject to the following conditions. Number 1, that an easement be registered for right-of-way access in favor of the development over KPDSB property as a secondary emergency access. And number 2, that the site plan control agreement for 421 9th Avenue North, generally described as, there's a variety of pins, so I will elect not to read those, but the subject lands be amended to the satisfaction of the city.
We have a mover for that, please. Here, and the seconder, please, Andrea. Any discussion? Any further questions? All right, all in favor?
Carried. Thank you, Mr. Kosnick, for being with us here this evening. You have received an approval on your minor variance application. That will be subject to a 20-day appeal period, but a reminder under the amendments to the Planning Act, there have been appeal limitations made. So that is subject to the applicant, the minister, a specified body, and or a public body, a specified person, sorry, or a public body. Nonetheless, the last day for filing of an appeal is Monday, October 7th, and notice of this decision will be mailed out tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, appreciate your time. Thank you.
So no land division applications. Next on the agenda, is D 092402 and D 142406. These will be discussed concurrently, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. And Mr. Haynes, would you? Oh, actually, is there somebody here who wishes to speak to this application or is representing it?
Hi, my name is Kate Moyer and I'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant.
Hey, if you'd like to give us just a brief overview, that would be great for the public's,
Absolutely. I did submit a presentation prior to, I don't know if somebody has it there or if I'm able to share my screen.
You're able to share your screen.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I didn't know. I'm used to having to accept co-host or something, so I apologize. My name is Kate Moyer and I'm a director of planning with M. Richards and Associates, and I'm presenting on behalf of the owners of the land, Métis Nation of Ontario, in partnership with OAHS for this regional housing project. The intent of the project, the applications required in the next steps is what I'd like to discuss today. So overall, the project intent is in partnership with Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services. Métis Nation of Ontario is looking to develop the plot of land at the intersection of Transmitter Road in Ontario 17 with a regional housing project, which would include 60 affordable rental housing units, 30 for Métis Nation of Ontario, and 30 for Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services. And the main floor would be commercial and office space with shared outdoor amenity space. So currently before us today is the development plan, or sorry, the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, which we're dealing with concurrently. In the future, there will be the subdivision application so that Métis Nation would own their own property and Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services would own their property, which would also include the site permit control application as well. And the intent is to do those concurrently as well. So the official plan amendment, we did partner with, we did work really closely, I guess I should say, with the City of Kenora staff to make sure that, you know, we were able to move forward in the most effective way. And so the purpose of the official plan amendment is to change the designation of the east half of the property from rural area to commercial development area. So the west half is already designated this, and so we just want the east half to match, and to add mixed-use development with non-residential use on the ground floor and residential uses located above as a permitted use. The concurrent zoning bylaw amendment is to change the property from rural zone and environmental protection underlay to a site-specific local commercial zone and environmental protection underlay. And this would also be to permit a multi-story mixed-use development with commercial on the ground floor and residential use above, with a maximum building height of 15 meters, with employee and visitor parking spaces permitted in the front. So far our process to date, we did a lot of conversations with the City of Kenora and stakeholders throughout the spring and summer, and engaged with the general public as well to gauge interest on the project and potential concerns. We made the applications over the summer, and then ongoing, we're still working on technical studies in preparation for the site permit control and working closely with the city engineering department. The engagement process, we had lots of one-on-one conversations with different agencies, but went to the farmers market and had a pop-up booth on June 19th. We had an online survey with paper copies at the event. You can see the map here on our table, and we just had conversations with well over 50 people stopped and wanted to have a conversation with us and just discussing the project overall, the need for housing, and desired layouts and things that we should consider prior to confirming the layout. We also had conversations with the church to the immediate north, KDSB, and the Chamber of Commerce. So based on the engagement, this was the preferred site plan that the residents and those that visit our booth and online survey felt was made most sense based on the topography along Transmitter Road and Ontario Highway. So this is what we have landed on with the buildings facing towards the road, hence the requirement or request for parking in the front, just based on the commercial main and common amenity space away from the little creek that runs through the property as well. And we've also applied for the entrance permits as required. We also have worked closely with engineering about servicing, and so further studies are needed to determine the exact site location of where the connection would be. But we're continuing those conversations prior to the site permit and subdivision. As well as we understand technical studies will be required, and so we've started some of them. Some are in draft stages. Some need to still be done, and we're fully aware and willing to work with the city of Kenora to comply with those requirements. And so we're here to answer any questions that yourself or the public have today, as requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. See that? Okay, excellent. So thank you. So just a summary of the planning report that they had a chance, opportunity to read. I'll try not to repeat too much of what Kate already went through and focus more on kind of the city planning opinion and advice provided for the application. We'll start off with a quick fact check. Talk about the proposed development, and then talk about the official plan and zoning bylaw overview, and then the application, planning review, and the recommendation. We just a fact check. I think Kate mentioned there's a creek that it does run through a small creek that flows through the property. This is not part of the provincially significant wetland area along Lawrence's Creek. There were also no fish or wildlife values have been identified on the subject lands, and municipal water and sewer is available at the northwest corner of the property. But what Kate covered this well, just again, this is the proposed development. 2 4-story mixed-use buildings with local commercial on the main floor and residential units on the upper 3 levels. Affordable multifamily rental housing is the focus of the residential use. A total of 60 units proposed. Yeah, so there's the subject property. As was mentioned, Lakeside Baptist Church is the neighbor immediately to the north, and it's at the corner of Highway 17 and Panhandle Road. And we look at the official plan designation. This is one property with 2 official plan designations. So the western half is commercial development area, and the eastern half is rural. And you can see neighboring properties are a mix of commercial development area, established area, as well as residential development. And in terms of zoning in the neighborhood, so the property does just have one zone. The entire property is zoned rural. Neighboring properties include highway commercial to the south, rural to the east, and then in institutional, again, that's Lakeside Baptist Church to the north, and then kind of a mix of residential R1 with R2 residential density to the north and west. So it's kind of an interesting transition with this property from highway commercial to more residential. And as mentioned, there was an environmental protection overlay, which is flowing along Highway 17 east from the south, flows kind of in behind FCL and the auto parts store there, and it comes up, and then actually the culvert where the picture is on the top left corner crosses just at the kind of extreme southwest corner of the property, and then flows from there through the property to the east of Lakeside Baptist Church and into Lawrence and Lake. So in terms of provincial policy, again, intensifications mentioned many times, and just that it's encouraged to facilitate a range of housing options, including new development as well as residential intensification to respond to current and future needs. And we feel that this proposed development helps to meet those targets.
And then also healthy, livable, and safe communities are sustained by promoting the integration of land use planning, growth management, transit supportive development, intensification, and infrastructure planning to achieve cost-effective development patterns, optimization of transit investments, and standards to minimize land consumption and servicing costs. And again, increasing the density with developments like this helps to achieve that. Official plan guiding principles, affordable housing, commercial support the location of affordable housing in an integrated manner with new or existing development. And the objective is to provide a mix and range of housing types that shall meet physical and financial needs of all current and future residents, in particular the aging population and new entrants to the housing market, with the goal of providing a timely response to housing needs associated with a diversified economy. And again, what's being proposed here, and the rezoning and changing the official plan designation helps future development in this property support this guiding principles. And again, more guiding principles. Kenora shall encourage new development, buildings, new neighborhoods to provide for a mix of uses and planning for complete communities. And neighborhood design, Kenora should promote a desirable built form in any development or redevelopment that addresses the needs of present and future generations. So here's the proposed official plan designation. As mentioned, on the west side, the commercial development area will remain the same. To the east, the rural area designation will change to commercial development area, which, as mentioned, supportive of because feel it addresses a number of priorities in provincial policy. And as well in terms of providing more commercial development, which is the continued development of retail commercial uses shall be promoted in order to serve the residents of the city of Kenora, Northwestern Ontario, Western Canada, and Midwestern United States, maintaining Highway 17 East, Highway 17A, Jones Road, and Highway 658 through the city is paramount to maintaining the economic health of the commercial retail sector of the local economy. Creating more areas along Highway 17 helps meet this goal of the commercial development area. The proposed zoning amendment, which is looking at changing the entire property from rural zone amended to local commercial. So for the local commercial zone, the purpose of this zone is to allow for the development of commercial office and service uses to meet the day-to-day needs of residents, along with limited residential uses above the ground floor. So just with the commercial, I don't know if you remember, this property is a transition from highway commercial to residential, and the local commercial helps with that transition. It's a good fit there. And as well, we've heard from the developers that they first and foremost want the businesses that are located on the main floor to help serve the residents. And the local commercial helps. It's not designed for the traveling public. It's more designed to help serve businesses that will meet the needs of the residents. But as you'll see, it does say limited residential uses above the ground floor, and that's why there is site-specific zoning, which in this case will allow for mixed-use multifamily residential development on site, which, as mentioned previously, does help meet a number of priorities, both in provincial policy and the official plan. There's a request for a permissible building height of up to 15 meters. And as was mentioned in the report, it's felt that with the location and topography of this site, the building sites are located quite a bit lower at the bottom of the sliding hill, the popular sliding hill. So with that and the distance from neighboring residential properties, it was felt that building height of 15 meters would not have impacts on surrounding developments. And permitting employee and visitor parking spaces in the required front yard adjacent to a residential zone. So this is also adjacent to Highway 17 East or the Trans-Canada Highway, and so it's not felt that allowing the parking spaces to be in the front yard here will have impacts on surrounding uses. So, as mentioned, so there will be future and studies required for the site plan control agreement. Do feel that You know, the location of this property can help provide active transportation, but the sidewalk does end at the northwest corner of the property, so there will be an interest in seeing an extension of the sidewalk along the south side of Highway 17 East to meet up with, and if you saw that the pathway that they're proposing from the development to the highway. As Kate mentioned, there's archaeological assessments that will be conducted prior to any building or development. Servicing studies to address any expansion or extension of services to meet the needs of the proposed development. That's water, wastewater, as well as hydro. Depending on the size or nature of the development, we have heard from Synergy North that it may require a significant expansion if what's being proposed here is a significant draw on hydro services. And the mitigation of impacts on identified wetland area to ensure the quantity and quality of water leaving the property is not impacted by the development. This is not specific to this property. It will become something that the developer is certainly going to have to address, but this is a principle in any site plan control agreement that our engineering department holds firm on, is if any development cannot impact on, if they're creating more water and or impacting the quality of water, they need to make sure that they're addressing that through design or engineering or changing in their plans to make sure that the water leaving the site, there isn't more water leaving the site and that aren't impacts to quality. So those are certainly things that will need to be addressed through future applications and the site plan control agreement. So the recommendation, bear with me, I'll just read this. It is recommended that the official plan amendment application DO9-2402 to change the official plan designation for the eastern portion of the subject property from rural area to commercial development area, and zoning bylaw amendment application D1424-06 to change the zoning of the subject property from rural use to local commercial 63 with site-specific permitted uses to allow for mixed-use multifamily residential development on the site, including a permissible building height of up to 15 meters, and to permit employee and visitor parking space in the required front yard adjacent to a residential zone to be recommended for approval to the city of. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Kate, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody here who are on Zoom who wishes to speak to this application, either in support of or against or comments in general? Oh, sure, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just
Prefer to stay here. I noticed that I have several neighbors here, I presume for the same reason. I think most of us are concerned with the capacity of the water entering that area. We're on the other side of the transmitter road. We didn't think that there was a lot of volume available, even to go to that 19 unit women's place complex that we had to hear it for 3 years. Now we're talking about more than 100 other residents on the other side. And it's the end of unless there's plans to have a further infrastructure to accommodate the additional people that be south of the transmitter road. I believe that most of the people in this room that are my neighbors are here for particularly that reason. And we just think that it should be considered, sure, some tests made and give us some assurance that that we're not going to be in problems in the future with water capacity and sewer and fire trucks, etc.
So what I'm hearing is you're concerned that there might be a drop in water availability for you and sewer, okay? So your pressure and, okay, so, would you like to?
Yeah, for sure. So we've had chats with engineering. I don't know if you remember Kate's slide earlier about servicing. So there are actually 2 lines coming very close to the property. one that comes from east along the highway and one that comes under the lake across the. And I think the hope is through this development to actually loop that line, and that will have a number of benefits, include increasing pressure. And I think there can be residual chlorine issues, right, in terms of water quality. So I think engineering has looked into this, and yeah, there it is right there. So you can see those multiple lines potentially coming in. So the one of the potential options is to actually loop those, and then actually that will create more pressure and better quality of water because we'll have a dead end line there.
Don't even know what that.
But if I could, if I could also touch on that. Tony Davis here, the manager at Capital Projects with the MNO. I just wanted to touch on that we are actually working with our consultants on the feasibility study and also with the engineering department with the city to make sure that we do meet the requirements, and we will be working on all that.
Those are my comments. I just wanted to make sure that it was being looked at and given some serious thought as to what might be a bit added on to the infrastructure supply.
For sure, and I think you heard Janice mentioned earlier with the site plan control agreements, they're very engineering heavy, and they will not get an approved site plan control agreement unless there is sufficient water. Right, and with fire hydrants and the whole deal, that whole piece. I think Andrew's familiar with that as well, right? Yeah. Yeah.
As I say, from what I read, there was nothing mentioned about it other than water availability, and that those are just 4 or 5 words. So glad to hear that, Andrew.
It is something that we look at very closely as we get to site plan control, because site plan control is the last step before building permits. So before, at that point in time, we know the details of what's being proposed, we know the height of the structures, we know the amount of water demand that's going to be drawn from the system. It's my understanding that when road improvements were done on the highway, that a new line was extended under the highway that hasn't been opened yet. So right now, the water that's lines that are servicing your homes are coming from the Lawrence's Lake underground or underwater. My understanding that what we're looking at now is reactivating the new line, but those details will be up to the engineering department and maybe working closely with the developer to make sure that that there's adequate water service. And
We have a new building that hasn't been yet, and I'm concerned about that. Because 3 years ago, we weren't given any guarantees, and there was a discussion who was going to look after the sewer and water. I remember people working on the committee at that time. But the chair of that committee said, well, is the city going to be involved? Sometimes I don't have a lot of faith in contractors, but they're all sitting here today.
So,
So we don't know yet when they turn their taps on, if we're gonna have.
so, and that was Mrs. Shuchak who's speaking this time, just for the minutes. Okay. Anybody else have any? Yes.
I
Could you please give your?
My name is Daryl Mishlock.
Okay.
Live on Transmitter Road. I just have one question. I'm thinking way back in this way up, where there was conversation with neighbors. There was no conversation with neighbors on our road. They had a pop-up thing in markets. When I phoned the town and asked, what do you mean with conversation? They said, anybody within 150 meters of this property would have been contacted. That's not neighbors. Like nobody on the road, I don't think any of us had any conversation with anybody about the scope out.
So,
And Kate's on there still. She did mention that you had conversation with neighbors. Like what neighbors have come over to your place next door? No, and they live right there across the street.
I'm the direct neighbor to the east of it. I didn't receive anything.
so I'm just going to get a staff member to clarify what the actual legislated requirements are.
Yeah,
for notice.
legislative, and they use the word neighbors.
Right. But they did note the neighbors that they spoke with, I believe, on the slide. I think there were two that they specifically spoke to, look like. But you did get notice, is that right? If you're within hundred and 20 meters?
But the only people on 120 meters is the church. And then.
And I didn't get any information on the direct neighbor. Sorry, Delano Cantera.
Sorry, your name? again?
Delano Cantera.
Okay.
So I own the property directly to the east, the one that's, there's
The
a-
property line is shared.
the property line is shared. So, as they were saying, it's my front yard that's gonna be impacted by the 15-meter height requirement. And also potential development, wetland area with, my driveway and entranceway going right up the hill, so assurances of maintaining that and well pressure, anything to do with that.
Is there anybody else who?
I have a question. Tom Hertz.
Okay, Tom.
I'm looking at this drawing here you have on the corner. Are any of you familiar with that corner? At all? Okay, he had they wanted a 6-month traffic study for one driveway for one house. We built a few years ago, and I think in the 90s, they wanted one for me as well, one house. What kind of traffic study told you that you could put sidewalks and everything crossing this road and traffic coming in and off of that corner? I've lived there my whole life. You know how many people died on that corner? Without walking? Without pedestrians and cars turning in and out of that corner? That comes up every time with the city planners about access to your property and sight, line of sight and everything. I don't see any adjustments to the highway here and it's, unless you take that whole rock cut out. Which you don't know.
Okay, is that?
But you don't
something
know.
that you ought to-
You're referring to the where Transmitter Road meets Highway 17?
That the whole corner.
Search's Corner it's referred to.
It's a long corner. You can't even ride bikes.
So the corner just to the west, right?
Where the entrance and exit.
Yeah.
Yes, we've been made aware of that intersection actually, and our traffic impact study is currently in the works. It's not finalized. We just have our consultant working on it right now, so we should have a lot of those answers shortly.
So that would be something that would be part of the site plan agreement, is that correct, or some kind of
Correct, yeah.
agreement? Is it-
Precisely.
So you've been heard, and,
Just got a consultant who
pardon me,
were they?
they have a
consult with
consultant. They have a traffic engineer by the sound of it.
Exactly, and we've been made well aware of that intersection there,
It's not the intersection, it's the corner itself.
or the corner itself. I mean, sorry.
Guys are gonna make a whole new intersection. It looks like to me. And sidewalks, this has got nothing to do with the transmitter road exit. This is right off the corner of that. Transmitter road exit's a bad enough one as it is.
So you're talking about everything east of that?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
retail,
the whole
right, on highways. Right, so that's, thank you
That's a big,
for that.
that
Yeah,
should be
thank
the
you
big.
for that, and then that's something that they will have some of their engineers.
Their engineers,
Right,
then
but
they,
they have to be approved then by the city.
oh,
All right, so I'm gonna go back to Mrs. Shuchek just for.
Okay, I just have one. I just. Highway every day for. The engineers that put in the sidewalk. I would say, hate our street. To the Hertz's Corner. For 6 months of the year, it is covered in ice. You can't, so children, I believe these, papers that you put out, everyone has checked off that. The people living in these apartments are gonna have easy access to walk to get their amenities. There's no friggin' way you can walk on that sidewalk for 6 months. Ice comes off those rocks. We have ice that high on the sidewalk, so if you expect your children to walk or people to walk, they can't do that. So what kind of transportation is gonna be provided for these people? to get from there to town to get their amenities. So now people thought. But I don't know, and I don't know why all these forms, they just check it off and easy, isn't easy. Whoever does it, doesn't live there.
Well, and honestly, it's good to hear from people who live in the neighborhood because some of the issues might not be something that people are aware of, but now it is part of the public record and something we will be considering. Thank you. Yes.
So I will direct you to if somebody online wants. to look it up.
Oh, thank you. All right. Derek Hertz.
Thank you for the opportunity. At a time when every project in the country seems to be under intensive scrutiny, this one doesn't seem to be getting the consultation that it's due from the proposed new neighbors, and I find that to be extremely unfair. Kate, if it's at all possible, I would like to be provided with your presentation as you zip through it pretty quick, and a lot of the details seem to have been skipped over, and I'd like an opportunity to review that closer. And then again, in regards to the consultation, the proposed sewer and water lines from your drawings would seem to encroach upon my property off the transmitter road. And again, I'm not sure what the provincial requirements are for consultation, but I can promise you that no one's reached out to me in regards to any type of easements or anything of that nature for the proposed sewer and water lines.
Okay, so Mr. Hertz, we'd be happy to provide you with that information. If you can just email mshaw@kenora.ca so that she has your email address, please.
Sorry, again, that email address was what?
mshaw, so mshaw@kenora.ca.
Thank you.
You. All right, yes. Could you just let us know your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Estelle Cantera. Okay, and I was not prepared to do presentation because I was going to wait till the next meeting. So I've just jotted some notes down and I'm just going to address them one by one. So the environmental, there is wetland there and it's also farm area. If you look at the map, so there is animals and habitat and all things going on there. The highway curve site line has already been addressed from that. Sewer and water, the capacity of the lines needs to be looked at because when that was put in, and I lived this through the lake and took easement through our property and did all that, those aren't high capacity lines. So both of those need to be investigated. There is no dead end water there. I don't know what you're talking about. There's a line that goes across to what used to be our parents' house. And that's where the line ends. They never looped it up to Ager Street, which was the plan. So it's not dead end, it is in use. It's not a dead line. Okay. The sewer and water in the area, yes, I've said that. Okay. And the gas line and the water lines are private property because the transmitter owned road is still owned by my siblings. And that has not been addressed. And I brought that up at the last meeting before the house that went up there, the women's shelter or whatever. I had addressed that. I have an email to the town that I sent for that to be addressed. It wasn't then, and it has still not been. The transmitter road has a separate PIN number and everything, and therefore it does not belong to the city. And the gas lines, water lines run through it, and it abuts Derek's property and the church and everything. So, and then what else? Then again, 50 people had a conversation about this at the market. Didn't even know that was happening. There was nothing to say that was going on. My son here has his house up right abutting that, and it just doesn't make any sense at all. So I think that's my main points that I managed to jot down right now. And I would do a better presentation for next time, but I would like some of these addressed as soon as possible. And I also would like a copy of the presentation, and if I could get a copy of your presentation as well, I would appreciate that.
You have an email address?
I do have an email
Okay,
address.
so if you wouldn't mind then emailing Melissa.
Okay, I
And
think
if,
I have.
and you do, okay, and then she'll be able to provide that to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks. Yes.
Dean Cozen. So with the continued decline of water quality on Morrison Lake and the southeast portion of the property up in the wetland goes directly into the lake, I great concern. Morrison Lake is a high incident of stress and clean green elevation on a regular basis. As this very slow parcel of land with all the stormwater ending in the environmental, you guys call it? Protection layer. Yeah. And the river system eventually ends up in Morrison Lake. According to the city of Kenora official plan, lakeshore capacity assessment should be completed. It's within 300 meters of the lake. I saw that Kate had that up there as potential, but I really think this should be addressed. I mean, Morrison is super stressed out. We have really poor water quality. It keeps on getting worse and worse. And if you're putting a major development, it's going to be dumping water. I know you said engineers are going to rent that, but I mean, anytime you have to put a parking lot or cement, you're going to end up having more water into this wetland that flows directly into the lake. And that's my biggest concern. There's definitely over the years, I've seen a decrease in water quality. And I think that that needs to be addressed by lakeshore capacity assessment.
Okay. Now, is that something that would be triggered also by the ESA that's going to be happening?
So I think there's two provisions. It's within 300 meters, but without access to municipal water and sewer. The real concern around is people on septic fields, and that's the real focus of lakeshore capacity assessments is septic fields and their impact on the waterways, right? And that's why we allow for smaller lots, right? Waterfront lots when they do have municipal water and sewer is because it's that's the real sewage is the trigger and the issue. So typically a lakeshore lake capacity assessment is not required if the proposed development has access to municipal water.
The city plan doesn't say that. So any lot creation, redevelopment, conversion, or intensification of existing easements. I'd also like to point out too about the sidewalk. So I commute every day to work on that sidewalk, and it is going to be a liability for the city. I have to walk on the highway for majority of the spring and part of the winter. A, because of the ice. B, because it's the end of the road and the city takes the time to get out there and plow. And I just can't imagine. I wouldn't let my kids. It's just not safe. You're gonna be putting lots of people in danger by having that. Really, that sidewalk should be moved to the other side of the.
Anybody else have any comments on this application?
Could I ask another question, please?
Yes, Mr. Hertz, go ahead.
Thank you. Can somebody comment on the wisdom behind putting multi-unit residential so far away from city services? So transit, grocery stores, doctor's offices, these types of things? I thought the goal of government housing initiatives at this point was more urban infill as opposed to sprawl.
I think it's like 3 kilometers from downtown.
So Janice, I wonder if you can speak to the overarching, the provincial policy statement with respect to the official plan as it stands today and what direction we have to take.
This property is at the very edge of the settlement center, but it still is considered to be part of the settlement center area. We're unveiling our new micro transit this evening, and so my understanding is that this area will be served by transit. So it is within the transit area. I don't fortunately, I can't be there and hear it same time, but that presentation is this evening. And we are looking at a new transit system. In terms of the distance to grocery stores and there are other residential developments.
I'm sorry, can you speak up, please? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry, there, in terms of the distance between this development and other, and groceries and that sort of thing, the proximity of this to Walmart and places like that, it's not, similar to other higher density, residential development in other parts of the city and grocery stores.
This would though seem to fly in the face of federal initiatives for urban infill and making accessible corridors and people being able to walk and ride bicycles to and from grocery stores and to and from appointments though.
Kenora is a very challenging place to do development in, finding buildable sites that can hold multifamily development is a challenge, and certainly when a proponent comes forward with an application, the city does consider that application as we're obligated to do. So this is no different. This proponent has come forward with an application. We're having our public hearing or public open house this evening. We're getting a lot of feedback, which is wonderful, and we very much appreciate that. That information will be carried forward as if this development proceeds through site plan control. And we certainly welcome all of this input when it comes to the public hearing at council next month.
I'll take that for yes. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other comments? Yeah, sorry.
Kristen Wolin, I live on Pennsylvania Road. I'm going to piggyback what Dr. Kozak had said about stress in Lansing's Lake. I'm one of the few residents on Lansing's Lake that draw lake water. And the degradation in the water quality in the last, say, 10 years, it's quite alarming. I'm just concerned about the impact that this new build is going to have on the lake. It means because that is a natural stream system that does go through, and I walk like Zach does every day. And the runoff from that area is quite large spring and for this major storm that went through. So I am concerned about the water quality with these.
Thank you. One of the required reports was a stormwater assessment, is that right?
Yep.
So again, it is good to hear from the people who live in the area. And one of the reports that the city is requiring is stormwater management. So that'll play into it, as well as the property will be municipally serviced for sewer and water.
The thing that's it does not know about the pop-up at the farmers market this summer at all. And I think I talked with the neighbors that live on Gold Road and Rocky Heights Way, and none of them had heard anything either, and they will be impacted as well because they are on this lake.
And I think the staff has sort of taken note of that as well for other times.
I have one final question,
Okay.
for myself anyways. When you say you're dealing with consultants and you're talking to experts and everything with all this stuff, who is it? Who do you deal with when it comes to waterways? Is it oceans and fisheries, or who do you deal with?
It's Ministry of Natural Resources.
Okay,
Yes.
But it belongs to like this oceans and fisheries because it connects to Lake of the Woods, which is international waters. Because I had to deal with that.
Well, I mean, it just depends on what you're talking about, but know that it is a provincial, like the lake bed, and for this property, it's Ministry of Natural Resources.
Let off. It's in the international waterway. All I'm saying is where we work, any water if it has ducks, fish, minnows, anything in it, comes under oceans and fisheries, and they tell us they are the big boys when it comes to this.
No, for sure.
decisions.
So
Not
there
the
is,
Ministry of Natural Resources, not the Ministry of the Environment, big guys are. Ocean, I'd be interested to know what they would have to say about the walking development. That's who I would like to see consult. They're pretty thorough. It's not just gonna be a crushed rock along shore thing.
so Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and that's not just for international waterways, it's the Fisheries Act, right? That is the legislation for the protection of fish and fish habitat. But typically, and unless you get into a situation where you're looking at compensation measures for habitat, it is typically still in this area, still in the province that enforces that legislation. Yeah, but you're right, it is federal legislation that the fisheries act.
Yeah, they just told us we dig a hole and it fills with water and there's something living in it. You're in big trouble.
And just for clarification, the part that they said there was no animals that were on the property, there's a significant deer population, there's ducks and geese that go on the waterway, there's tons of things that are in there. You can't just say no animals.
No, and sorry, I didn't say any animals, so it's critical. I mean, you can obviously realize if there was no development anywhere any animals live, there'd never be any development, right? So they really focus on critical habitat, right? For deer, often in this area, it's overwintering areas, right? That's kind of the limiting factor that they would look at. Nesting habitat, things like that, but it's not anywhere you see or find out, right? This is.
It's not a nesting habitat for migratory birds.
In the wetlands.
That's why I was wondering. Who brought salt.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so if there are no other questions or comments, then we're going to close the open part of the meeting. And then it'll be up to the committee to ask questions of staff and the applicant. Okay. All right. Committee, do you have any questions or comments?
I think that, just knowing that the studies are in place and have to go through these channels, their answers to the questions, so questions these people have asked me.
Okay, thank you.
So we're changing the current designation. However, under the rural, you can still put up a house with your farm, correct? And under the commercial, you can still put up a strip mall of offices, correct? So it's just a little bit taller. And so it's not really like that they're building on this development. It wasn't environmentally protected land. They were allowed to build on it. They're just building something a little bit bigger, correct?
Correct, like with the official plan, now the strip mall, you would need to change the designation because the zoning is rural.
Okay, but it was commercial something,
But yeah, but there are, I mean, the
but they could build. it
number
on,
of things
like-
that you can put on a rural property is fairly extensive.
Right,
And not
so,
just homes, but a
so they
number of
could
businesses.
build on it without having this designation. They're just asking to build something a little bit bigger and to merge the two properties. So. Thank you.
You're not merging the two properties.
Well-
They're two different titles.
So it's one property
Yeah.
with two official plan designations, which is unique.
Anybody else?
I'm hearing from multiple neighbors that it just seems that perhaps the consultation or the, like direct neighbor next door did not receive any notice. So was that an error on the city's behalf? Is it further than the designated distance from that property that house is at, or is it a property line? Like, I'd just like some clarification on that. I just want to make sure that the process was followed to the T, so that's.
There's something in the paper. There's Facebook. Is it on Facebook? City of. social media page, I believe that there was notification. So it's not a requirement. So. And then the consultation of the market was, that was voluntary, guessing.
I am searching the secretary and Pat, but it is my understanding that the city follows the proper protocols and the legal requirements to mail neighbors. Anything that the developer did above and beyond that is encouraged by the city, but it is not a requirement in any way. So the city follows the legislative requirements in providing notice for this public open house, as well as the public hearing that the city is.
So that is noted that, you know, if you don't maybe go on Facebook, then you might not, but there, it is, and I saw it in the paper, that's why I was saying, I saw it there, so there are ways, and then within 120 meters of any part of that property, it's not just from like the middle of it. So that's the legislative requirement. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat that part about the 120 meters from the property. It's really hard to hear on the Zoom.
Oh, sorry. So when they are looking at 120 meters from the property, it's from 120 meters from any part of the sort of the property line. It's not just from the center of the property.
And what's their duty to consult there?
A notice of this meeting should have been mailed to everyone within 120 meters of the property.
By the city of Kenora or by the proponent of the project?
By the city of Kenora, and we will confirm that that was carried out. If not, it will certainly be done before the public hearing. Or we will have to revisit that.
Thank you.
I can note that, yeah. So, we do have a resolution, for a recommendation to council. Would you like to?
Sure. Yeah, as two applications were being heard concurrently, I do have to read two resolutions, so my apologies to the audience. Firstly, the official plan amendment resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kenora approve application for official plan amendment, file number D09-2402. For subject property located at an unassigned property at the corner of Transmitter Road and Highway 17 East. We have identified this legally and provided a schedule in that resolution to council. The purpose and effect of the official plan amendment is to change the designation of the east part of the subject property from RU Rural Area Designation to CD Commercial Development Area Designation. The effect is to enable future commercial uses. The application also proposes to add mixed-use developments with non-residential uses on the ground floor and residential uses located above as a permitted use under section 4.41 Commercial Development Area of the Kenora Official Plan 2015. The effect is to permit mixed-use developments. The committee has made an evaluation of the application upon its merits against the official plan, zoning bylaw, and the provincial policy statement, and provides a recommendation to council purely based on these matters, whereas the committee may not have had the opportunity to hear internal department, stakeholder, or public comments in full.
Okay, may I have a mover for the resolution? Hey, Andrea, seconder, Renee. All right, discussion. Anybody have any?
We able to put forward recommendation of conditions or for the approval of this?
Yeah.
So I would be. I hear the concern about the safety of the sidewalk. There are the likelihood of children living there and being a mixed use facility, then I think there should be some consideration made in the site plan to ensure that there is safe pedestrian access to a highly densified zone.
So that is probably good wording to ensure that there is safe pedestrian. Do we want to say pedestrian?
I would say a raised median. protected, like a active infrastructure protected by a raised median?
So what do you mean by an raised median?
Like a curb and like a 3-foot patch of grass or gravel or something before the beginning of bicycle lane and the sidewalk.
So within the road lines, you mean, right? So there would be the travel portion of the road, your
The
median.
shoulder, and then a hard median that's protected by a raised concrete.
Guard.
I think it's called a median.
So protective.
A raised concrete median of 2.5 feet.
So would we say that, in order to ensure that there are proper safety measures in place for active transportation, walking, cycling? Be protected for this.
Again, so Grant describing exactly how wide and how it's structured, that's really, I think, the engineering department's job, that
I would just
think
say
just-
like divided, like divided by a median.
So if we say safe access and then leave it to the professional then to decide what that is.
I would just put divided median because they put the sidewalk on the edge of the road all the time.
So Kara, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm not an engineer, so
Okay.
my
So
recommendation is that
what
to
we-
ensure that there's safe
What we will be,
access.
what we do know is that our minutes will go to council and they can review them. So that they will hear what you're having to say and staff will then also talk to the engineering department, and the applicant has heard that as well to consider as part of their traffic study. So, do you have wording then? Ensure safe.
Sure,
Safe.
safe transportation and pedestrian access to from the property.
Okay, so active transportation. Okay, so,
Okay, so
Yeah,
to ensure.
that works.
To ensure safe transportation and pedestrian access and to promote active transportation. Correct? That site plan control address the sidewalk design and implementation thereof.
does site plan control do that?
Well, that's what I heard the committee suggest they wanted to defer to.
Okay, so, does site plan control something that's off of the,
Well, we can defer that question to our planner.
Yes,
okay,
we can, and it's common in depending on the project that. Works, which is actually work that the developer does on city lands to the city center.
anybody else have any? Or conditions?
Well, I'd like to see the condition concerning the water quality and pressure be addressed. Some other conditions are.
Okay, so, and that would be done, or that's already in the works, is to provide that information. So, do we need that condition, or is that something that's an automatic?
We've recommended already.
Well, and that's automatically, that's engineering will not approve a development that a normal fire, right? There's so many safety and insurance and all sorts of issues like, and you get into it, if there isn't the fire pressure that meets certain standards, they won't be able to get the building insured. There's lots of checks in place about predictable water pressure.
And then what about the actual drainage on the property to ensure that it's not impacting the quality?
Again, that's on the developer to make sure in terms of quality and quantity that they've addressed, that they're not adding, right, to impact on water quality and or the amount of water
Is
that they're
done through
creating
their
through development.
Their stormwater,
They have to do the calculations and then show how they're
and then it needs to be approved by,
City engineer.
City engineer. Okay. So is that?
Yep.
That, the height, you brought up the height concern. And I don't know where your building is.
If they showed it, you could see it.
Yeah, is it up the pasture or on
Yeah,
the transmitter road?
no, right, where the second
He owns
building
the
is.
house.
Oh, you're up top. So the height of that particular building being 4 stories wouldn't block any of your views.
It would be directly in line with pretty much 15 meters is pretty much in line where the house sits from the bottom of that. Say that.
It's all like the house.
That's
Is Mr. Kendora's house shown there?
Correct, yeah.
Which, can you show us?
On the right.
On the right hand side,
Mouse is on there
Yeah.
right now.
See the driveway, both up. Right there.
yeah, there you go, where the mouse is.
Oh, right there.
So in the proposed plan where they had the second building, where it was directly in line with site.
So where that new road went, it's got right here.
But wouldn't that like almost protect you from this noise of the highway then?
There's no noise. That's, I would rather have noise than see 60 units next.
So, and the public function is,
Sorry.
that's okay, that's okay, yeah. Any other conditions? Okay, so, the resolution's been read, and the condition that we are adding is to ensure that there's safe pedestrian and, where do you want me to read it?
So I've included
Yes.
the pedestrian access, servicing study, the drainage plan and the water management plan, which have been identified as the consultant will be included in site plan control. But the committee is welcome to add those just as a condition if they choose. So to ensure safe transportation and pedestrian access and to promote active transportation and active living, that the site plan control agreement address sidewalk design and development. And that service study is designed, or sorry, that a servicing study is completed to the satisfaction of the city of Kenora. A drainage plan and stormwater management plan be approved by the city of Kenora to ensure no negative impact to water quality in EP areas.
So, no, we use it, so all in favor of that?
So I will address the public statutory meeting after we read the recommendation for the zoning bylaw. Resolve that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kenora approve application for zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-2406 for subject property located at an unassigned address, my apologies, at the corner of Transmitter Road and Highway 17 East. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to change the zoning of the subject property from RU Rural Zone and EP Environmental Protection Underlay to a site-specific LC 63 Local Commercial Zone, site-specific 63, and EP Environmental Protection Underlay. The effect of the zoning bylaw amendment and site-specific zone is to permit a multi-story mixed-use development with commercial uses on the ground floor, residential uses above, a maximum building height of 15 meters, and to enable employee and visitor parking spaces to be located in the required front yard adjacent a residential zone. The committee has made an evaluation of the application upon its merits against the official plan, zoning bylaw, and the provincial policy statement, and provides a recommendation to council purely based on these matters, whereas the committee may not have had the opportunity to hear internal department, stakeholder, or public comments in full. Now to the committee, I can also add the same condition to this, just to ensure that is consistent with your official plan resolution. That is your decision.
So may I have a mover for that resolution, please? Andrea, seconder. Carrot, right. To Melissa's comments, would you like to have the same conditions put on? Or are there others that you want to discuss? Any other comments? Questions? Okay.
So to the public, both on Zoom and here with us this evening, thank you for your participation. This was an open house and Planning Advisory Committee made a recommendation to council only. So the statutory public meeting will be held on October 8th in council chambers at 12 o'clock noon. That is a public meeting. There is no requirement to register and everyone is open to attend and to address council. For those of you who did not receive the public notice, we do have record confirming notices were mailed, but we will happily correspond with you to ensure we have the correct mailing address. To yourself, I do see that we do have a different mailing address than one in the area, so I will connect with you directly. To anyone who would like to receive the additional information, please email either myself, mshaw@kenora.ca, or the planning department, planning@kenora.ca. All of our notices are available on the Kenora.ca website. If you simply search for the Planning Advisory Committee in the search toolbar, you will come to the Planning Advisory webpage. All of our notices are available there, and it will hyperlink you to our email addresses. So please do feel free to correspond with us for any additional information you need. Okay. So thank you for being with us here this evening.
Thank you. So, patients again, please, who are waiting for old business, we're just gonna take a 5-minute break. A little, it's not.
Been through there.
Here's cleaners.
Did you see anybody? Okay. Okay, so we are going to reconvene. Melissa checked in the hallway, didn't see anybody, so we are now looking at old business, D 13-2406, which is 34 Minnesota Street. So the first thing I have to do is apologize to all of the interested parties, because I stated at the end of last meeting that we would be making a decision based on all the information that we got last meeting. You know now that we did get some amendments to that, and so the committee will be considering the amendments as well as all of the correspondence that we have received from the interested parties. So I just wanted to let you know of that. The public portion of the meeting is still closed. So it'll be between the committee members and the applicant and staff. There's nobody on Zoom, right? Is there anybody on Zoom for you guys? Okay. So you'll be hearing questions back and forth, and then discussion, and then a decision. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so as I said, we still were in the midst of asking questions and of the developer. So does anybody have anything for our staff? So either.
I'd just like to know about this transportation study that is being done and when we'll be getting the results of that. Sidewalk issue that was brought up. And the parking, lease fund. So 3 concerns.
Yeah, the engineering department has been working with the consultant to do an intersection study for the intersection at the corner of Minnesota Street and Highway 17, Whitby Drive. And they are looking at improvements to that intersection. That is something that is a regular part of city business. They have not brought those forward to council yet. And we're not at liberty to share them with prior to them being brought forward to council, but it is something that is on the city engineering department's agenda, and they're working towards that. So I can tell you what I've seen some of the consultants' recommendations, but what council will decide for improvements to that intersection, I'm not at liberty to say that.
Excuse me, could you speak up with that?
Sorry. The engineering department has hired a consultant engineer to do a study on the intersection at Minnesota Street and Lakeview Drive. They have received preliminary reports which have not been forwarded to council yet for council's decision. So any improvements that would be made to that intersection, it's something that the city is looking at, but council has not made it decisions or been presented with that report yet, so it's not something that I can share with.
And just you made reference to the leased parking lots. I think from the city's perspective, there's been significant improvements there on a couple of fronts. Number one is those parking spots are no longer getting accessed off Minnesota Street. They are turning in and accessing from the property side now. So there won't be vehicles backing into Minnesota Street, leaving those parking stalls. And the other thing is the amount of land being requested to lease for those parking spots has been reduced, which has also reduced the impact of parking spots over top of municipal infrastructure, which also made an engineering much happier.
And the Minnesota Street itself, is there issues as far as how wide that road is with accessing parking lot from the Norman Community Club, the beach and the development?
So I don't think the existing width of the road will be changed. I think the engineering department was interested in working with the developer to discuss the traffic calming measures. Whether that takes form of a speed bump or, you know, some sort of way of making sure that traffic slows down through there.
Sidewalks, that was brought up as well.
So that there's presently no sidewalks there. It is something that city may consider in the future. We haven't dealt with site plan control at this stage yet, so it's certainly something that would come up with discussions with developer through site plan control. But at this moment, we cannot commit that there would be any sidewalk development. So the improvements that the amended proposal is bringing forward are primarily that there would not be cars backing out onto Minnesota Street. And there's preliminary discussions about it. Traffic calming or the crosswalk, that sort of thing.
As far as density as well for the boat parking and the docks. I did have an opportunity to go down by boat and take a look, and it is an accident waiting to happen in that whole area, for sure. High density. I just don't know how many spots that are going to be added, how many boat parking spots are to be allowed on the dock that would be the request that they've asked for. I'm sure if you can answer them.
I don't know if you would defer to the developer for that. That may be a better question if that's.
Yes, eight. Okay.
And the established area, we talking at one time, is it a medium density? Is that what? Talk about the medium density in the established area, that part of the property, is that still, is it considered?
So Janice, can you speak to the provincial policy and the official plan, please? Thank you.
So the official plan identifies this as established area. Through this process, we have
You can just speak up a little more for those people.
So the property is identified as being part of the established area. There is a provision under the official plan that identifies density limitations within the established area. We have looked at that against the provincial policy statements from 2020 and realized that the City of Kenora official plan has not kept up and been amended to be in keeping with the provincial policy statements, which there are many references in the provincial policy statements to intensification, transit supportive development, better use of city infrastructure to achieve cost-effective development, optimization of transit investments, standards to minimize land consumption and servicing costs. And unfortunately, when the provincial policy statement was approved in 2020, city policies have to be take second tier. So you have to consider the provincial policy statement first. And if it meets that, and any city policies that contradict the provincial policy statements can't be enforced and would be overturned if this was appealed. So that section of the official plan, which states that the established area density restrictions are out of sync with the provincial policy statement, and so they can't be enforced.
So legally, they can't be enforced.
Yeah, but this no.
Renee, I see, yes.
Yeah, couple of things. So I was reviewing the content, this material that we received, and I'm still confused, or I don't recall understanding how highway commercial can allow a daycare facility on site. Because it's not listed like daycare for the, it's not listed as can't remember the wording, but as an approved for use. So can somebody refresh my memory as to why this works?
So the site-specific zoning for this property doesn't just talk about the size of the building, the height, but it also talks about the use. Right, and it says business and office use. So there, it's open to business and office use, and it doesn't restrict the highway commercial because of the site-specific zoning, right, mentions, like, in the zone, right, there's limitations for height, but then you've got the site-specific zoning that changes that. And with the site-specific zoning, it also mentions the uses for office or business, of which daycare business.
Sounds like it's broad definition. It is a very broad
It's how it was written, yeah.
So can I just add to that, to your comment here? A day nursery is permitted in local commercial, general commercial, and RU only. And daycares are permitted in residential, and the daycare is not defined. But when I did dive into Google, it seems that a business would be something that would be a home-based daycare. And there's new legislation not called the Day Nurseries Act anymore. And I actually was reading all of that criteria, and I actually have a question. Does KDSB, are they confident that they can meet all of the requirements by putting a daycare facility into that building? They are?
Yeah.
Because one of the criterion that they said, first of all, you have to look at your site, you have adequate parking and safe area for pickup and drop off. And so that's why I was asking if they are confident. Okay. All right, anybody else? Oh, Mona, you have another, hey?
The doc, as I was reading the specifics, the application, the dock projection, the dock size, and the relief that is requested. You know, going from 65 feet to 99 feet, I work in, you know, Imperial, my apologies, but you know, that's a 35-foot addition than what is allowed. So in my mind, that's not minor. Similar with the dock size, you know, in excess of 100 feet is being sought for relief. Again, to me, in my mind, 100 square feet is not minor. So that is a concern to me, especially if it's already a congested bay.
100 square feet, I think it's 10 by 10.
And
I think it's 100 square feet is 10 by.
Oh, sorry. Member Campbell, you have declared your discretionary interest under 11.2. So we're gonna have to ask you to refrain from making comment on the application. Thank you.
So why is the variance changed also for the docking?
Yeah, there's wetlands there that we have to cross.
I don't think the variance has changed.
The variance will change.
Oh, I thought, well,
No, it was just
sorry.
part of the original. But even then, I thought it was beyond
So to
mine.
preserve the wet.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
You're requesting the variance to get across there instead of going through it.
Okay.
For that, pushed it over.
Do you have any questions or comments? Do we have an idea, or do you have information on lot coverage for 5 Bay?
So for 34 Minnesota Street, the lot coverage is 30%. For 5 Bay Street, the lot coverage is 39%. And that's including the parking lot for the annex space. In the area calculations for 5 Bay Street, which is actually 40 Minnesota Street. So if you exclude that parking lot, it increases the coverage of 5 Bay Street to 56%.
Question was brought up in the communications that we received was about the garbage. To the developer, so they were concerned, people are concerned about still the location of it and the effects on the neighborhood. So it has to be on the outside, it can't be inside.
Sorry, I didn't hear, so did you say that garbage area was going to be completely enclosed,
We would pull perimeter.
but not the top? So birds still,
Well,
yeah,
the garbage stands out.
yeah.
Okay, so, visitor parking. Is this part of the 10 that's on the rollouts? It's going to be part of the rollouts? Okay. How many, parking stalls are you adding to the second lot? You said you're gonna further develop underground parking. How many? Are there gonna be 2?
34 in total. 2 floors.
So 2 floors. And so how many stories of building are you gonna have then?
6.
6.
Because they counted from the average. Rating.
Okay, so your drawing still say 5, like your legend still says 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so here's a question for staff. When we're talking in the official plan about compatibility criteria, we talk about new buildings must have regards to the height and massing of adjacent buildings where variation in height or massing is proposed. A transition is desirable. So this won't leave any transition space then if it's staying at 6 stories, change from 5. And then talking about shadowing being minimized, and parking, it says adequate on-site parking must be provided with minimal impact on adjacent uses. So those are my issues. I mean, it doesn't meet the intent of the official plan to have orderly development, I don't think, and have minimal impact on the adjacent uses. Is there any way we can talk about the
property was purchased with the understanding of the current zoning that was in place that did set the height limitations for this building, that it was purchased with that intent, with the understanding that zoning is approved in compliance with the official plan. And so that was the owner's understanding when they bought this property, that they could develop to this extent. So typically, there are always those sorts of broad statements in your official plan that direct how you will rezone an application. So if an application came in for a request to amend the zoning to allow a higher height, then those are exactly the policies that we would be reading in the official plan to argue against increasing the height beyond what is already permitted. But to go after the fact that the zoning has been approved and tell the landowner that no, you can't do that, it shouldn't have been allowed, is They have bought it, I understand, it has to be,
But they're here for a variance,
not,
right?
so we're talking about the variances that they have asked.
But still, massing is still when
They
you're
have not
expanding. Okay, so then the other, in the zoning bylaw also, for the landscape open, space and buffer strips, it says that, where landscape open space of any kind, including landscape buffer strip, is required adjacent to any lot line or elsewhere on the lot, nothing in this bylaw shall apply to prevent such landscape open space from being crossed by pedestrian walkways or a permitted driveway, provided the minimum angle of the intersection between a driveway and a required landscape buffer shall be 60 degrees. My only concern is that's south walkway. It goes right through, if it's part, it seems to form part of the landscapes buffer area.
So they have not asked for a variance in that aspect of bylaw, and so when we go through site.
So
plan
you'll have
control,
them. Okay, okay, and then also correspondence we received today also spoke to maybe the development of a sidewalk in that buffer strip that they were considering as part of, you know, between on the sort of the west side of the parking lot or the parking area they want to lease. Is that not something that the city could consider then to have a sidewalk there? And if they're, I mean, make it like downtown and have a couple of trees in it or something to make it more. But it does say in the official plan that a sidewalk needs to, must be developed. So
I personally have not seen that. Have you seen that proposal? That would be something that we would certainly consider.
that was part of a submission from somebody that we received today.
We can take note of that for site plan.
So can you just clarify again that the height is 6 stories, that was the 2 underground parking? And that is how many meters?
No, so the height is just above grade.
Above, okay,
So any underground parking stalls that are below do not count for the height. Right, that's
so
6-story
the
height.
height above grade is how,
Yeah, there is a definition for height. It is the average of the grade. Of the finished grade, that's where you measure height.
So what we have right now is the original elevation. And so are you asking what is the new? Yeah, dimension then? Do you know what that is?
It's 5 stories above grade are still the same as shown from the original doc.
Okay, so you're going further down,
They count, because we have 2 levels of parking.
right?
From the average grade, they count the first level below grade as a story. Up 6. So we're constrained to 6 stories with certain height. We have 6 stories.
Other questions for staff? What's your, nothing? No, and. no? Okay, would you mind reading the application for the resolution for?
Well, there was no resolution provided. We didn't have an amended planning report. So what I can read are the requested variances brought forward in the amendment. And then the conditions that were following the original application. Removing those that were requested.
Did I just interrupt you? I'm sorry, I had one more question I forgot about. Has this property been surveyed?
Yes.
Okay, so what we're seeing is real, like all the property lines. Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, sorry.
Okay. So that the amended application D 13-2406 seeking relief from sections of the city of Kenora zoning bylaw as outlined within the table below. There's a table in the decision. To support the development of a 5-story mixed-use development be approved and subject to the following conditions. 1, north side yard, relief only applies to as necessary to accommodate the required garbage receptacles as well as any pathways or stairways required for building exits. South side yard, relief only applied to south side yard as necessary to accommodate vehicle access and or parking as well as pathway or stairways as required for building exit. 3, fence to be constructed at the expense of the developer to augment the proposed landscape buffer along the entire length of the south side yard. The fence should be 3.0 meters in height and meet the requirements of the City of Kenora Fence Bylaw 163-2015. 4, proponent enters into agreements with the City of Kenora for the use of the Minnesota Street right-of-way adjacent to this property for a 3.0 meter buffer. 5, the proponent enters into a lease agreement with the Corporation of the City of Kenora to enable 10 parking stalls located on Minnesota Street. 6, that the development be limited to a height of 5 stories. Now, these were at the recommendation of members of Planning Advisory Committee. It is up to this committee to provide resolution as for the
Just for
amendments.
clarity, Madam Chair, I don't think there was any variance for height, and I think it remained at 6 stories. I don't think there was.
We received through you, Madam Chair, I did receive communication from committee member today asking that be a condition.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't see that.
The correspondence was directly to the Secretary Treasurer to drive the draft decision.
Discussion.
I wondered if it would be, wise to, have a condition whereby the proponent, looks at adding safety measures to improve pedestrian safety. Like
I
along
have
the,
a note here about condition where a sidewalk should be there.
and also, closing in the garbage area. Like having
And
a
then
structure with a roof,
Oh, with her,
which would limit rodents and smells, escaping.
I don't know about whether or not there's the capacity for the garbage pickup people. Don't have that.
I'm trying to ask a question through you to the applicant, just for the recommendation.
Yes.
To you, Mr. Merkel, exception 4, north side yard setback, I believe in your most recent comment to the committee, you said you had pushed the garbage back to 1 meter. The amended planning rationale was seeking relief of 1.5. Can you just clarify what the proposed provision is and what the relief required is?
These requested of 1.5 meters for a length of 1.
So the relief is 0.5.
What, no, it is 1.5.
1.
I think the exception said 1.5. We have it listed as an exception. Just bear with me.
That's an accessory.
And we're remaining in the 1.5 meters. More so.
Does an accessory structure require only 1 meter?
That's the relief, maybe, as I get the side yard, 0 meter required 1.5, so that's maybe a. If it's 1.5 meters, it's the relief request.
To 0 then?
Okay, so the zone provision is 1.5. You're proposing a 0 meter setback, requesting relief of 1.5 meters. Is that correct?
Just for 1 meter.
So you're gonna put it 1 meter from the property line?
Putting it on the property line, but they don't require it. They relocated it. Such of the front of the property line, so it doesn't, they don't need the relief down the entire property line. They only require it for the 1 meter. That's the width, that's the width of the garbage receptacle. Oh, the property line jars. That's it.
So I do have to comment, it's kind of, maybe it's difficult. That aren't complete also.
So we're leaving 1.5 feet. This is setback 3.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the planner, may you confirm what exception 4 for the north side yard setback was in the original zoning bylaw amendment?
So the minimum north yard side setbacks is required 1.5 meters, proposed 0 meters. And then it says here, the proposed setback reduction is not for the building, but for the garbage receptacle.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Merkel, may I read to you the proposed variance amendments as listed in your amended? It says north side yard relief requested 1.5 meters for a length of 1 meter. The garbage enclosure has been relocated into the rear yard with only 1 meter remaining in the 1.5 meter north side yard. This relocation significantly reduces the requested variance for 0 meters north side yard to only 1 meter length of this side yard. Okay. Okay.
You're at the corner of the rear yard side. Just need to get a portion of the side. Closer to the street.
Okay, I just want to ensure we have the correct provisions in the relief table. So you're saying you are seeking a provision of 1 meter. And Mr. Haynes, you confirmed it was originally 1.5 meters, so
it is still one.
It still is one.
The
1 meter of garbage can to be. Side, we need it.
So most of the garbage receptacle is in the rear yard. And they're feel that the only side yard there is. I think it would be safest to put that it is for the length of the garbage receptacle.
And enclosure.
And enclosure.
So my question is, if they have to maintain the enclosure on the north side, they would have to go on to the abutting property to do that. Right. So is that something we normally would prefer? Or would we prefer that there be some wiggle room? Because otherwise they're gonna have a surveyor set that wall. Yeah, because you'll be encroaching on the other property if you want to maintain that. So is the garbage receptacle something we can leave for site plan control? And if there's a requirement for a variance, then can we come back to that?
It would require a full notice and public hearing.
Any comments? Feel free to read the table, please.
It's right on the property line.
Okay,
Not gonna extend, like, you look at the drawing, it's right on the property,
right.
even to our property.
It would be within your property. So it's not a zero lot. Right?
So the variance is to put it right to the property. Or right to the property line.
Madam Chair, may I interrupt? Do
Yes.
you mind if I read the sections from the Kenora zoning bylaw 101/2015, which have been sought approval through the amended application?
Sure.
Exception 4, north side yard setback. The zone provision requires 1.5 meters. The proposed provision is 0 meters and the relief requested is 1.5 meters for the length of the garbage receptacle and enclosure. Number 2, section 3.17D, a 3-meter landscape buffer. The zone provision is 3 meters. The proposed provision is 0 meters. The relief required is 3 meters. Section 3.231 in table 4 required parking. Parking requirements for dwelling units. The zone provision requires 1.5 stalls per dwelling unit. The proposed provision is 1.1875 stalls per dwelling unit. The relief required is 0.3125 stalls per unit. Section 3.25 dock projection. The zone provision has a maximum of 20 meters. The proposed provision is 30.4 meters. Relief required 10.4 meters. Section 3.341C, maximum dock area, 80 meters squared is the zone provision. The proposed provision is 113 meters squared. Relief required is 33 meters squared.
Would you mind reading the conditions?
Okay, as I mentioned, these conditions were sent via the Secretary Treasurer from members of the committee to be included in a draft decision and are subject to amendments from this committee. So number 1, that the north side yard relief only applies as necessary to accommodate the required garbage receptacles. Question to the committee, am I retaining or removing as well as pathways or stairways required for building exits? Number 2, south side yard. Relief only applied to south side yard as necessary to accommodate vehicle access and or parking as well as pathways or stairways as required for building exit. Number 3, fence to be constructed at the expense of the developer to augment the proposed landscape buffer along the entire length of the south side yard. The fence should be 3.0 meters in height and meet the requirements of the City of Kenora Fence Bylaw 163/2015. Number 4, the proponent enters into agreements with the City of Kenora for the use of the Minnesota Street right-of-way adjacent to this property for a 3.0 meter buffer. Number 5, the proponent enters into a lease agreement with the Corporation of the City of Kenora to enable 10 parking stalls located on Minnesota Street. And number 6, that the development be limited to a maximum height of 5 stories.
So technically, there will be 5 stories above ground, 1 story, 2 stories below. Is that correct? Okay. You don't have that dimension for what that means.
Very much for variance for height.
Madam Chair. I'm not sure that we can put a condition that would alter
Area.
I'm not absolutely certain that we can put a condition that would alter
The zone.
the zone. So it's something that they have not requested for.
Can we add a condition? I think something similar to what we added, for zoning bylaw amendment, about, ensuring, safe, for walking and, active transportation.
Do you want that deferred to site plan control? Or it doesn't?
Well, we can say that the site plan control agreement includes. Safe measures, yeah, for. See.
That the site plan control includes safety measures for active transportation. For the benefit of the committee, Madam Chair, through you, may we address condition number 1 and number 6? Number 1, north side yard relief only applies as necessary to accommodate the required garbage receptacle. Are we including as well as any pathways, stairways required for building exits?
Yes. But can we just go back to the garbage receptacle? Are we? Is the committee satisfied that a zero lot line is? So there's no space. Well, it's on the lot, it's right on.
And the impact of that is that they can't, like, maintaining it, they'd have to go on.
The other property to do that. So that involves. I'm kind of agreement between properties. Yeah, but definitely the. Ways, I think, and it's included if we're going to reduce. But that's. I we need to decide on that. Additional and. Approval to do. Yeah, do the same thing as what we did for. The everything. Require. And agree that they can go on to maintain that garbage. Is that it? Sorry, I didn't hear it. We could make it a condition that they have an agreement between property owners so they can go on and maintain them without an issue. Yeah. Another question for staff. The traffic study that's being done or has been done, is it considering all of this development?
We supplied the numbers, the projections for this development to consultants.
Remember the trip generation estimates that were provided?
Yeah.
As part of this report, so those that were provided, and typically those are what feed into a traffic.
When we're talking about the condition of the 3 meter buffer, can we just say that the parking stalls are on the east side of that? Just to make it more. The 10 stalls on the east side of that. So a question to staff, all these conditions that we're putting in. If they're not met, if the transportation study or the engineering report comes back and they say we need a sidewalk and this will. What does this do to the whole process? How long do these usually take?
The site plan agreement? I mean, that depends on how many studies can be done as quickly as months. If if things move smoothly with the site servicing and that there can be holdups with getting the studies.
So these are all being put in as a safety net to ensure the concerns of the locals and the people in the neighborhood. Of safety and whatnot are all gonna be looked at by the professionals that are doing the assessment. Correct?
Right, just to clarify, so that's the site plan agreement that outlines the
Right.
terms of what will be done, and then there is a period. Couple of years for those things to happen, while the building takes place and sidewalks are put in and all that, but and there is a security. That the city will take from the developer that they hold. And if for some reason the developer doesn't. Do those things, the city then uses that money instead of giving it back to the developer, uses it to do the work. That they said they're gonna do. But
Chairman. When PAC is identifying conditions to go on to the variance. Some of the details you're getting into go beyond zoning and into site plan control, which is. A complex process, which is why it's an administrative process. We talk to engineering and take into a lot more information that. Comes into it. So. It is one thing to mention a lot of these things. But you to put in your recommendation that the resolution that it be subject to site plan control to the city's satisfaction to give us a certain amount of leeway when you're looking at, you know, what is feasible. If you say you want a specific traffic calming measure or something very specific, and we go to engineering and we say applicant has to come back and to this committee to amend the variance through no fault of their own. It is something that.
So do you see any problems with the ones that we're talking about right now?
I would just like that provision that it put, that these items be addressed through site plan control to the satisfaction of the city, so that we have that underlying thing that we can some flexibility. That it's not too prescriptive.
Okay.
like, for example, I think like traffic calming is the perfect thing to put, but to say it must be a speed bump here, right? Then that's problematic, right, for example.
I think the only thing. So, right.
I have read conditions that were provided to me. I do need resolution from the committee on condition number 6, striking it.
Which was the
Development be limited to a max.
Yeah.
5 stores.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, can you read it all together? Oh, yeah, and then we'll get them.
That the amended application D13-2406 seeking relief from sections of the city of Kenora zoning bylaw as outlined within the table below, and I will read that table, to support the development of 5-story mixed-use developments should be approved and subject to the following conditions. Firstly, the table reads, zoning bylaw, exception 4, north side yard setback, relief required 1.5 meters. Section 3.17D, relief required 3 meters, and that's landscape buffer. Section 3.231 and table 4 required parking for dwelling units, relief required 0.3125 stalls per unit. Section 3.25 maximum dock projection, relief required 10.4 meters. And section 3.341 C(B)(11) maximum dock area, relief required 33 meters squared. This would be subject to the following conditions. That the north side yard relief only applies as necessary to accommodate the required garbage receptacle and enclosure, as well as any pathways or stairways as required for building exits. Number 2, south side yard relief only applied to the south side yard as necessary to accommodate vehicle access and or parking, as well as any pathways or stairways as required for building exit. Number 3, A fence be constructed at the expense of the developer to augment the proposed landscape buffer along the entire length of the south side yard. The fence should be 3 meters in height and meet the requirements of the City of Kenora Fence Bylaw 163/2015. Number 4, that the proponent enters into an agreement with the city as necessary for the use of Minnesota Street right of way adjacent to this property for a 3-meter buffer. And that the proponent enters into a lease agreement with the corporation of the City of Kenora to enable 10 parking stalls located on Minnesota Street, located on the east side of the 3-meter buffer.
Yes, seconder.
There was no seconder, Madam Chair. We need an amendment to the resolution.
Okay. So you can amend one of the conditions, you can amend one of the variances, you can refuse, approve all the amendments that you make. And when you defer, you're going to defer for a reason. What is it you're looking for? When you refuse, similarly to when you approve, there has to be reasons. And with using the 4 tests. And if you refuse, it's the same. You have to use reasons for tests. My concern is the height of the building. And I don't know if I guess that's part was the council decision that the council made that. So I just want that noted that I'm just concerned about that, and I'm still very much concerned about the waterfront. It seems like nothing to have any parking spots, but it's still very, very dense in that area, and it's site specific. I just feel that I have a concern. So we would need a new resolution then. Now I just need to bring to everybody's attention that we're coming up on 9 o'clock. As we know, this is something if we want to go past 9 o'clock, we have to have everyone agree to do that. So I would like to do that now, so we know we're gonna have. That sounds good. Okay, so, I need a mover to go past our computer amendment. Linda, seconder. Renee, all in favor, that would be just. Thank you, so those who are able to vote. Agree? Right, so. The amendment, I'm not sure, developer, sir, you said that you needed the extension variance because of the access, like to get over the wetlands or the. What was the reason for the size? Get past the wetlands. So.
That was my understanding.
So if that's something that you don't agree. I don't know what the solution would be. However.
Kind of amended it, right, and, ask that that portion of the variance be removed from the table. So if they chose to put in a dock of the size, they would have. Their variance for that. I don't know if the proponent feels he may be willing to remove the dock variances from the application as he did the other variances. So that is something that you can do. Permit. As long as requested.
Renee, do you have an amended, or do you have a resolution you'd like to put forward?
My resolution would be, again, dealing with the dock issues to, stick with the required vision for instrument.
The recommendation
Yes,
by striking that out. Is that something? You can do that? Yep. So, the condition that the docs meet the satisfaction of section 3.341C. Not extend the provisions of. Okay.
because in my mind, I still believe that the relief required is not minor, both of those instances.
Okay, so. Would you like to?
Then it's that relief required for those two affecting the dog, not be allowed.
Or be removed?
Be removed.
All other provisions to remain the same.
Yes.
I was remiss to read in a condition in the earlier iteration that the site plan control agreement includes safety measures for active transportation to the satisfaction of the city of Kenora.
And then easement or agreement. Easement agreement. For the 11 property owner for maintenance of the. For the shed. And that's part of the site plan.
Why don't we say that site plan control agreement address the need for potential easement?
Or encroachment agreement in order to maintain the north. Wall of the garbage enclosure. Oh, I'm sorry, all right, so.
Most could deal. So there's no need to go on the other side. I don't see any approach.
Right, but if you have to fix a broken board or something.
So.
It's the normal setback for something like that.
Zone, I believe, read 1.5 meters through you to the planner, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that the property adjacent to it still have, thanks. Even though you say that it's not an infringement, it's not, it would be, and. Well, if they walked onto the property to maintain it. So if you feel that you can fix it from the inside.
Fences are built on property. Just like a fence on the property line. The board on the inside. Need to go on the property. It's like it's on the property.
We are striking the need for an easement on the north lot line to maintain the garbage and receptacle. The amended application D 13-2406, seeking relief from certain sections of the Kenora bylaw as outlined within the table below to support the development of a 6-story mixed-use development be approved and subject to the following conditions. Firstly, the table reads, exception 4, north side yard setback, relief required 1.5 meters for a proposed provision of 0 meters. Section 3.17D, 3-meter landscape buffer, relief required 3 meters for a proposed provision of 0 meters. Section 3.231 in table 4, required parking for dwelling units. Relief required 0.3125 stalls per unit, proposed provision 1.875 stalls per unit. And that's subject to the following conditions. The north side yard relief only applies as necessary to the garbage receptacles, enclosures, any pathways, stairways, or building exits. South side yard relief only applies to south side yard as necessary to accommodate vehicle access, parking, pathways, stairs, or building exit. A fence is to be constructed at the expense of the developer, and that should be 3 meters in height and meet the requirements of the Kenora fence bylaw. The proponent enters into agreement with the city of Kenora for the use of Minnesota Street right of way adjacent to the property for a 3-meter buffer. The proponent enters into a lease agreement with the city of Kenora to enable 10 parking stalls located on Minnesota Street, located at the east end of the 3-meter buffer. My apologies. And that site plan control includes safety measures for active transportation to the satisfaction of the city of Kenora.
Right, I have a minute. A second. All in favor?
So that is a split vote, which does not indicate majority.
We have to.
So we do have to
Make a
amend
decision.
that decision to come to majority resolution.
Okay. So my issue is with the use of the rules. I would really rather see what the traffic impact statement says. And then what the roads department engineer has to say about that. That's my big issue, and it was my issue the last time as well. The visitor parking on the leased property does not sit well with me. I don't think that that's in accordance with the official plan. So that's what sorry.
That request has been.
They're still gonna be using Minnesota Street though. For parking. Not for visitor parking, for parking.
So the variances that are requested don't take into account those 10 parking stalls. Those are mitigation that we were suggesting that pathway add, and that's why they were added as conditions. They are not part of the. Parking. If these variances are required. Are approved the way they're there. There would be no need for those 10 stalls.
Okay.
It is a suggestion of that we use those stalls.
So then we eliminate number 5. The condition. Right. So that is, the proponent enters into an agreement with the corporation of the state of Kenora to enable 10 parking stalls located on Minnesota Street. Located at the east side of the buffer. So that's for day nursery.
So there's no parking going to be needed on
the road.
With these variances, the parking would not be limited to be provided. It's something that it felt that because of these variances, an additional 10 parking stalls were needed off-site, then they could need to could put it as a condition, and that was what was.
So that's saying that it's not available on the property. But within, what was it, 90 meters or something, using that?
Unfortunately, just the provisions, the conditions of that can't be met on city. So that's why this could be a potential condition to add some additional relief for parking, but it can't be included. Those 10 spots can't be included as part of their zoning requirements for parking, which is why the variance is exclusive of those 10 stalls.
So does that make a difference to you? Could you just speak up, and I don't think they can.
I was okay with the application. As presented. I had some minor issues that were taken care of. Discussion. Some information about it. So again, those were. Relieved. I was relieved of some issues. But. Yeah.
You what?
I don't really have anything. Against this right now, with what we're doing. Because I'm okay with the dock. Okay with. What I'm hearing from the city staff.
But you voted against it? Or you didn't, you voted not to
No, I was,
approve it?
no, I was okay. with. Yeah, my understanding was when. The recent vote. Took out something. Okay. Okay, taking that out. I'll say,
The dock,
the doc. I was okay with it.
okay,
That was the reason why
okay,
that was understanding.
okay. So, so docking also, I mean, it is an issue for me as well. I agree that it's too much. Having gone through there in a boat and looked at, not a very busy day, but it was busy enough. So we have to make a decision on this. And, so, do you have any solution for this, Chris?
Not off the top of my head. Again, the reason I like the docking included is because I'm extremely good friends with 2 doctors. And not to say that this is a generalization, but having a building of that type on Lake of the Woods without access to Lake of the Woods seems like a miss to me.
So it's not to say that they won't be able to provide docking. I imagine they would have to do an ESA in order to ensure that docking was something they could do. Is that right?
We're satisfied with the extension. I think we're going over top of the wet area. That address that. And actually, if I may, Madam Chair, as in my report, I did indicate that in my opinion, this was minor, and I just want to point out that unfortunately, well, for better or for worse, like the zoning bylaw does not distinguish between single family dwellings or an apartment building in terms of the size of the dock. So just for some context, any property owner, right, on the water body can put in an 80 square meter dock and an 83 square meter boathouse without going through any minor variance. So I think in the context of that, this size of dock for a 32 unit apartment building did seem to be reasonable. And I think from our perspective, if all developments had that scale of dock, I think it would relieve a lot of the issues on that. So that was some of the rationale behind why that started.
Our, it doesn't distinguish between a single family dwelling, multiple users.
So someone building there, if they had purchased that property, could have built that kind of a dock with a pump too. That's where the changes.
Not this dog.
Not this time.
But yeah, 83 square meter boat port and then 80 square meter dock could be, so 163 square meters, right? A total dock, depending on the design, could be built without going through any minor.
So part of the reason for the length and the size is that they have to spread them over, right? Yes.
Commercial docks typically get a license from the ministry for their dock, and then they're a water license, and they can build a much larger dock. But because this is a rental property, not a commercial dock, it is for the occupants of this rental. It's a joint ownership kind of situation. They don't need to get a license from the ministry, so they're not exempt from our zoning bylaws. So it is a kind of unique situation in that if they tied to the ministry for a commercial dock, then they could get a water license from the ministry, and it would go through a different set of rules of it.
Well, and DFO would be involved then, right?
Transport Canada.
Transport Canada,
For
and
navigation.
they're not involved in this at all.
A commercial dock.
Going back to your traffic study. Would the travel or traffic study offer any insight into how traffic could be circulated or what improvements be made to improve safety and traffic flow? Like, I'm not clear how it's going to impact the development.
I think that's exactly what it's, right, is in that whole area, that intersection, it's recognized that there's, and I think there's some recent changes in the city with the new microtransit system. Now bus shelters are no longer to be needed, and so the removal of the bus shelters at that intersection has freed up additional use of turning lanes, and with changing in lights and things like that, that's exactly what the traffic impact study is looking at, right, in that area, is improving the flow of traffic and safety.
So,
Just at that intersection.
Correct.
yes,
So it's.
Well, that's part of the intersection, right? So it'll be. those
Right,
four,
but
yeah.
I'm thinking.
Right, and your conditions that you were suggesting about traffic calming and things like that are valid.
So Madam Chair, if we are at an impasse, what option is to defer until the traffic study? Not traffic, I don't know what that's. Until the traffic study is completed and then come back.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now, the resolution is to remove the two docking variances. So we would have to amend again, right? In order to either restore those and amend it that way. And then do a further second amendment then, or third amendment, with respect to the traffic study, if that's what we would like to do.
What kind of, may I ask the developer, what kind of space would you have for parking if you had to go with, you know, setback more, like how many spots would you?
Would be 10. So, 10 less, right? Correct? Okay.
But that's
So-
not, I mean, those 10 extra are conditioned.
They're a condition.
Right.
So
So they are.
We have enough parking on site.
Right.
City suggested that we enter a lease agreement for 10, for like an overflow situation.
So we would also, so what that would do is leave that buffer area sort of out in the middle. But kind of, pardon me, yes.
If the 10 parking stalls that are in city property were included in the calculation, they would not need a variance parking, is that correct? So we would have 1.5 parking stalls per residential. There are provisions in the zoning bylaw that you can provide offset parking within 90 meters of a property. But it is subject to a condition that is placed on the title for that property, that you have dedicated parking. City cannot encumber the owner, so they can't exercise that option. So this is a way of granting the variance, and if that is listed as a condition of the parking, they would have 1.5 stalls per unit, which is required. But it would, which the 10 stalls are on someone else's property, and at some point in the future, if the city needed that space, it could.
So another option is to, the condition with respect to the traffic study is that the city is satisfied that the recommendations of the traffic study will provide traffic calming, better flow, and safety measures for, so that's another way of doing it, knowing that they're already doing the traffic study and then leaving it up to site plan approval and city staff. Okay, so how are you feeling about the docking?
I think that the docking, I just feel it's really out there, and I think there's parking and really. The owner of the property would like to have access to put a boat in, but I'm just wondering how necessary. I'm looking at configuration of everything.
So my question is, are you comfortable with amending the resolution? Okay. To restore the 2 variances for the docking? To put a resolution, so there can be.
Well, the existing resolution, we're not still at an impasse.
Right.
So. I think there's no option. To remove the changes, to revise resolutions. So.
So. This is 35, does this say 35 meters? I'm just wondering what that dimension is.
30.4.
30.4.
The dot? Yeah, that is the maximum projection, correct?
So. What's your width of your boat stalls? Six meters? So 12 meters between each finger?
We didn't mention.
Well, I was just thinking, just to make sure that it doesn't extend, like if we can make it a little shorter. depending on the width of the stalls, but then you want to, you'd have to have, full parking on the T end, right? On the east end to accommodate 8, is that what you're looking at? Or are you looking at people parking along the walkway part?
Two at the far east side, the two on the other. The two on the east side of the next.
I was just wondering if there's some way we could say to, I mean, not, it is a maximum, but if we could say it could be a little less, but that's kind of the way it needs to be for that, so. Okay, so, we can,
If I go back to say, if I remove the two, or we reverse putting those two dock things back in, then we're just back to the original resolutions, right?
right, no second. No second. So if we have a second, we can bring it back.
Well, then I will move that we revise the resolution again and dock variances back in.
All of seconder. Renee, Linda second. Okay, so
Sorry.
the original. Okay.
No, I was just thinking that every. It's just.
Well, no, we have, because we have to make a decision, right? Yep, okay. All right, so all in favor? Okay, so, okay.
It's a carried vote.
Okay.
So did you want me to record that? Member Christopher Price. It was a yay. Member Tara Rickaby, yay. Member Renee Robert,
Okay.
and Member Linda Mitchell. So, the original motion, the only addition to the recommendations was that site plan control includes safe measures for active transportation and traffic calming to the satisfaction of City of Kenora. All of the conditions remain the same. The 5 zone provisions that were requested did receive approval for the reliefs that were applied for in the amended request. So notice of this decision will be mailed out tomorrow to all interested parties. It is subject to a 20-day appeal period. Again, for the members of the public present and those on Zoom, there are appeal limitations, and that would be clearly outlined in the notice of decision. The appeal deadline is October 7th, 2022. Should you have any questions at all, please feel free to email planning@ca. And thank you again for being patient with us this evening.
Thank you. Okay. Any business? Okay. We have a motion to adjourn, please. Okay, Chris.